Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. This is the Wednesday show that you can catch on the Georgia-Alabama Sports Live's Facebook page and YouTube channel every Wednesday, 5 o'clock. We've got a busy night of shows. Coming up after this, Thrip Behringer and I will be at the showroom for Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC up in Opelika for the Georgia-Alabama Sports Live show with special guests. And then later on tonight, we're going to have the Glenwood Coaches Show, and we're going to have the Muskogee County Coaches Show featuring, we've got Pierre Coffey. We've got the Columbus cheerleading coach. We've got the Northside girls basketball coach, Coach Jarquilla Woods. It's going to be an exciting show. So sit back. Enjoy an hour of talking sports locally here in Columbus and national sports. A lot to get into on tonight's show. We're going to talk about flag football. I will break down the bracket as Columbus moves on to the Final Four. And you saw that game on Monday, the quarterfinal matchup. I will get into that game. I'm going to talk about high school basketball. Every Tuesday night, it seems like everybody's in action. And we are dubbing it the Tuesday Night Showcase. Had another fantastic quadruple header on Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. I always love doing that. And I love giving the coverage to the teams out there that need to get the coverage. And so we're going to go ahead and break down all the scores. I was able to try to get as many scores as I possibly could. Good job by the coaches updating on Max Preps as I was able to get those scores in. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and break down the show. I do want to start with high school football. We still got one more week left. It's wrapped up in Alabama. You know, all the champions. Central did lose to Thompson. You had Parker ended up beating Saraland. Montgomery Catholic ended up winning the 5A. Reeltown winning up the 3A. Mars Hill Bible, Wadley. And it's Jackson with the 4A. Yeah, I actually didn't even need a script for that. I knew all the champions for the state of Alabama. Congratulations to everybody, including Chambers Academy, who won the 3A AISA champion. Alabama football, it's completely done. We still have a week left in Georgia, and we have semifinals in flag football. And let's go ahead and start with the GHSA championship games that are going to be at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium starting on Monday. Next Monday, 4 o'clock, the 1A Division II state championships. Bowden, trying to go for a three-peat, ends up taking on Brooks County, who got a big overtime win, 17-14 over Manchester in the semifinals. And in the 4A state championship at 7 o'clock at the Benz, we've got Marist taking on North Oconee. Now on Tuesday, we've got at 1 o'clock the 1A Division I state championship, Northeast out of Macon taking on Toombs County. And then we've got the team that we are all rooting for here in the Chattahoochee Valley, the Carver Tigers. 13-1 after getting a big 49-6 victory over Appling County over the weekend. Thrip Behringer and I were there on the sidelines. Our most popular high school game day ever. the most views. We also had a halftime show, and it was just an electric atmosphere. Yeah, it was cold, but Carver advances to the state championship for the first time since 2021, where they lost to Benedictine. Back then, it was at Center Park Stadium. This is going to be at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, 4 o'clock, taking on Burke County. And this is a plea, not just to the Carver fans, but to everybody in Columbus to make your way up to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Let's pack that place with as many Carver fans as possible. You know, Burke County out of Waynesboro is going to bring their fans as well. Burke County, they had such a fantastic season. Their only loss was to 4A Benedictine. And so Burke County has a lot to play for, but this Carver defense has been playing lights out. Only gave up 54 total yards to Appling County, a couple of defensive touchdowns, but it's the offense led by their quarterback, junior quarterback, Matthew Mungden, who has weapons. You're talking about Braylon Jakes. You've got KJ Miles, Jacoby Caslin, Kelston Popcorn Tarver. Tristan Givens plays a little wide receiver every now and then, but he's part of that dark side defense. Tristan Givens over there with A.J. Wilson and Jabo Wisdom and Antarius Watts and Zay Billingsley. Such a great, stout defense. Carver trying to win a state championship for the first time since 2007. And I do believe that Coach Pierre Coffey, he's got a chance here for Carver to win a state championship since they've gone to the state championship in 4A. They've gone to the semifinals in 3A. Carver goes all the way down to 2A. And I think that Carver, who's been number one in most of the polls, they have finally reached the poll in ITG Nexus poll. They always seem to rank Carver a little bit lower than the other schools like Pierce County, like not Brooks County, but Burke County, Appling County, all those schools in the poll. But Carver playing 4 o'clock, the 2A state championship at the Benz against Burke County. Come on out. You know that we are going to be there. We're trying to get media credentials. Want to be there at the Benz to support the Carver Tigers, that school on the hill that has had a fantastic season, and they're trying to cap it off with a state championship. All right. Later that night, we've got Langston Hughes out of Fairburn in the 5A state championship taking on Milton. Milton won the 7A state championship last season. Milton trying to go back-to-back. And then finally on Wednesday, we've got the private bracket at 1 o'clock at the Benz. Prince Avenue Christian trying to go for the three-peat, taking on Hebron Christian. The 3A championship is at 4. It is Jefferson taking on Calhoun. And then the 6A state championship, 7 o'clock on Wednesday. It is Grayson taking on Carrollton. Carrollton led by the best player in the nation, Juju Lewis. How fitting would that be? The Colorado commit to wrap it up with a state championship for the Carrollton Trojans. And I'm going to go ahead and get into the flag football semifinals. As you saw in Georgia Alabama Sports Live, Columbus gets the big 27-18 victory over Washington County, led by 3 touchdown passes by Serenity Hickman. She was the Alex Quinney All-State Good Hands player of the game. Alexandria Lofton with 2 big interceptions, including an interception when Columbus was up 19-18. Washington County had the ball, and Washington County did a good job driving the football down the field. And Alexandria Lofton with a huge interception. Columbus gets a touchdown and gets the try. So now they're up 2 scores, and it was all said and done. The Columbus Lady Blue Devils are going to the Final Four, where they will take on Long County in Ludwicki on December the 12th. That is tomorrow, for the right to play for the Flag Football State Championship, which will be held on Monday at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Meanwhile, Harris County season came to an end on Monday. They lose to the 3-time flag football champion Southeast Bullock on the road, 7-0. It was a very tough loss. a fantastic season for Coach Moss, Coach Rick Beach, Cricket Colley, one of the best quarterbacks in our area. And they had such a great season. And for them to come up short, they won the region, but kind of felt like they did not get a favorable bracket, having to be in the same bracket with Southeast Bullock and having to go on the road in Statesboro. But still a fantastic season for the Harris County Lady Tigers. So Southeast Bullock, they are going to be on the road taking on Dodge County. Southeast Bullock was a number 1 seed. Dodge County was a number 1 seed. Because of the GHSA coin flip, Dodge County was on the bottom of the bracket. So Dodge County will host Southeast Bullock. That's just how the coin flip goes. And then we got Columbus taking on Long County. Over in, we actually do have Division 2, Division 3, and Division 4, which I will not get into those brackets, but the Flag Football Championships will actually start. They're going to actually have it at 11 o'clock. So Division 1 and Division 2, 12 and 2. And then on Tuesday, we've got Division 3 that's going to start at 11 o'clock in the morning. And then Division 4 is going to start at 11 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. So we're going to have flag football all 3 days of the championship week. And, if you can't make it out to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the NFHS network has got you covered. All right. A big action last night in high school basketball. A lot of blowouts in high school basketball, especially on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I was at Spencer High School as Spencer was taking on Jordan. I'll get into the girls' game, and then I will break down the boys' game. Chris Gates, Robert Edmonds, they were at CVCC last night as the Lady Pirates were taking on Albany Tech. Thrift Behringer was on the campus of Pacelli with Toygar Isla as Pacelli Vikings and Lady Vikings were taking on Cristo Rey, and Rick Beach and Brandon were up at Harris County for Carver, Harris County, boys and girls. A fantastic quadruple header last night. Tuesday nights sees all the action in high school basketball. We had Brookstone taking on Chatco. I'll go ahead and I'll start with that game as Chatco. I don't have a score for the Chatco Brookstone Lady Cougars and Lady Panthers game. I actually was over there right before the JV game started because it was near my work. I shook my hand and talked to the girls and boys basketball coach for the Chatco Panthers and Lady Panthers. We want to try to maybe possibly live stream some Chatco games as they are in our area. And Chatco Panthers ended up defeating Brookstone 71-65. Brookstone is going to face Spencer this Friday, and they're going to host that game. The Lady Cougars and Cougars hosting Spencer, and you could catch that game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Let's go ahead and break down all the matchups in the girls' side of the scores. Russell County, they end up defeating Columbus 70-57. Just a heartbreaking loss for Coach LaShonda Adams as she was down 2 players. But congratulations to Coach Ricky Jones. He's just doing a phenomenal year. I mean, just rebuilding this program. I mean, when you have a player like Mackenzie Word, who was just dominating as an 8th grader, and Russell County, they get a big win over the Columbus Lady Blue Devils. It was Schley County defeating Hawkinsville 36-34. How about the Shaw Lady Raiders? They end up defeating Northside. Going to have Coach Woods on the Muskogee County Coaches Show. It was pre-recorded. I know that we talked in the interview that they were undefeated. Well, the Northside Lady Patriots are undefeated no more. They are now 6-1 as Shaw gives them their first loss of the season. And a good bounce-back win for the Shaw Lady Raiders, who were up 30-14 at the half last week. And Northside was able to pull away. Shaw was able to make the adjustments. That backcourt of Quishai Walcott and Brooke Ship is just fantastic. Congratulations to Coach Charlie Marquand and assistant coach Curtis Crowell getting the big win as Shaw ends up defeating Northside. All right, I was on the call for Spencer Jordan, Coach Tinch, and against Coach Cobb. Both teams were playoff teams last year, but there's just too much firepower. Alexandria Burke, she was the leading scorer, 71-28 over the Jordan Lady Red Jackets. Spencer is now 4-3 on the season. They're getting ready to take on Brookstone this Friday. Troup County ends up defeating Whitewater 56-32. Thurp Behringer was on the call for Pacelli Cristo Rey. Pacelli 59-17 over Cristo Rey. And Pacelli will take on Central tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing that matchup between Jabria Lindsay and Michaela Hosley, two of the best players in our area. It was Harris County. Congratulations to Coach Stephanie Ramsey Dunn for getting the 72-51 victory over the Carver Lady Tigers. Now, Carver's still good, but they lost a lot of firepower from last year's team with Jasmine Thornton, Aubrey Wilkins, and Chubb Williams. All three of those players graduated. They still got Cam Thomas. They still got a lot of depth. I believe in what Coach Anson Hunley is doing at Carver. They were just running into a 4A team in Harris County that went to the quarterfinals as a 5A school and almost beat Cartersville. I think what Coach Stephanie Ramsey Dunn is doing at Harris County has been phenomenal. I mean, when you have Alana Coulter, you have Janiyah Broom. They did lose Brooke Bass, but Coach Ramsey Dunn has still got a great team, and what a great win for Harris County up in Hamilton. Smith Station ends up getting the win over Eufaula after losing over the weekend to Hardaway. Smith Station ends up bouncing back 38-27 over the Eufaula Lady Tigers. It was Lee Scott 55-20 over Beulah. You had Opelika end up defeating Glenwood 57-41, and finally Valley gets the 55-18 win over Bullock County. Let's go over to the boys' side as the Russell County Warriors. How about what Coach Ronnie Battle is doing? 8-2 on the season as they defeat the Columbus Blue Devils 56-41. Now Columbus is going to take on Northside this Friday night. And so the Lady Blue Devils and Blue Devils taking on the Northside Patriots and Lady Patriots. How about East Coweta ends up defeating Callaway 78-59. Carver takes on Callaway in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to that matchup. The Callaway Cavaliers. LaGrange over Mary Person 78-69. Schley County ends up defeating Hawkinsville 58-52. It was Northside getting a win over Shaw after losing to Shaw last week. Northside bounces back and beats Shaw on their home court by a final score of 69-54. And one thing about this Northside team, led by Coach Greg Johnson, Xavier Davies, leading scorer, only a freshman. Nate Saylor is just an assassin from behind the arc with the three-point shooting. And I think Northside's going to be fine. They're taking on Columbus this Friday. I was on the call for Spencer Jordan, 87-49. And Coach Barnes for the Jordan Red Jackets, it's his first season. He's got some players. I thought that Moreno Neal did a good job. I think Davin James, the leading scorer for Jordan. I think that Jordan is going to be fine. They're going to continue to improve. But Spencer, talking to Coach Allen, I mean, he's got some players that are injured. But, Kerry Griffin, 20 points. He shot 6 3-pointers. And he was the Alex Quinney All-State Good Hands player of the game. Spencer is now 5-2 as they get ready for Brookstone this Friday night. We will have that game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live as I will be on the call. But Spencer, DeMarcus Horn, you have Zyquan Bright. I mean, Coach Allen's got a lot of depth on this Spencer Green Wave team, and it really came out to show. Now, Jordan actually cut it to 20. I thought that Coach Barnes' team did not quit in this game, and I was very impressed with Marsh, the point guard, and I was very impressed with what Coach Barnes is trying to build at Jordan, taking over for the legendary coach Gerald Turner. We know about the history of Jordan winning a state championship in 2007. Coach Barnes trying to get Jordan back to respectability, trying to get them back to the playoffs and being competitive. And especially in this region, it's going to be tough, but he does have some players. I said on the broadcast that, even though Jordan has some really talented players, Coach Barnes just does not have the depth that Spencer had. And ultimately, that's why Spencer was able to get some contributions from some rotational players, and they were able to put up 87 points on the Red Jackets. All right, Chaco, like I mentioned, they defeated Brookstone 71-65. It was Kendrick with an 89-65 victory over Pike County. How about the Kendrick Cherokees? 8-1 on the season. Congratulations to Coach Andre Dye. They will take on Jordan next Tuesday. So that's a game just to watch out for. Oh, man, the Carver Tigers, they completely dominated Harris County, 103-25. Tony Montgomery, 24 points. He had just a phenomenal game, just some highlights, some dunks. He is the Troy commit. He's one of the best basketball players that we have seen in this area to come out of this area in a very long time. And I think that he is going to do well at Troy. He is just a highlight reel every time he touches the basketball. And Carver, 3-0 on the season. They are currently ranked number 1 according to Kyle Sandy and his poll, Sandy Spell. And this is the most reliable source when it comes to high school basketball. I love Kyle Sandy and what he does with his Sandy Spell rankings. Got Carver number 1. By the way, Spencer is ranked number 6. So that Carver-Spencer matchup, get ready. I'm actually putting it on my calendar. January 11th, Carver-Spencer. I just want to throw that out there. All right, this was just a great finish. Kevin Eckelberry does a great job with BTV Sports covering all the Troup County schools. Whitewater, 1-point victory over Troup County. You know, Troup County is a very good team. They were able to beat Spencer, but this was just a tough loss for the Troup County Tigers. Thrift Berger on the call for Pacelli and Cristo Rey. Remember, this was a semifinal matchup in the GIAA state playoffs last year. Cristo Rey is a good team, but Pacelli still undefeated, 3-0 on the season. What a win for the Pacelli Pacelli Vikings. 4-0 on the season because they actually did beat Carrollton on Saturday. So they are 4-0. Congratulations to Coach Calvin Thomas. He's really done a great job just, taking the baton and actually what Corey Black has been building at Pacelli, and Calvin Thomas doing a fantastic job there. Lee Scott Academy, we knew they were going to be good. The defending AISA champions have a no problem in the AHSAA. Just a phenomenal record. And I believe they're 9-1 or 10-1. Hayden Harper is just an incredible player. And they ended up defeating Beulah, a big area game where they defeat Beulah, the Bobcats, 76-50. We had Opelika ended up defeating Glenwood, 77-39. We knew this was going to be tough for the Glenwood Gators. After getting a big win over Brookstone on Monday, they beat Lynette on Friday. They just can't seem to figure out Opelika, which is a 7A school. And we knew this coming in. When Coach Dusty Perdue scheduled a 7A school in Opelika, that it would be challenging. But this Opelika team right now, who's 9-2, it looks really good. I think that Opelika has improved, and I think that's going to be very interesting when we get into area play, when Opelika has to play Smith Station, because Coach Ingersoll's got a great team, and they defeated Hardaway over the weekend. And we know what Central is with Coach Burkett and assistant coach Terrell Owens, and what Central has with Jaden Ford and Bryce Dawson and Jacoby Hill and Willie Townsend and Tez Williams. They got depth. And even though Central did lose to Southwest DeKalb over the weekend, I mean, that's 2 losses against teams in Georgia that compete for state titles. They lost to Kell already. But I'm looking forward to seeing that area with Auburn, Smith Station, Opelika, and Central. We're trying to get a Central game. We're targeting January the 2nd when they take on Percy Julian. We talked to the athletic director. We want to call Central. We want to cover Central on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I know that the NFHS networks got priority, especially they are going to be live streaming the region games, or the area games rather. And so we understand that. So we want to try to get a Central game on the schedule. And then finally, I did not want to forget about this team because, I want to give love to Valley. I love what Coach Marshawn Harper did. He's retired, but, Valley, 2 years removed from having a perfect season and winning a state championship, they end up defeating Bullock County 42-41. All right, why don't we take a break? And when we come back, we got the NBA Cup. We got a Monday Night Football game that I do want to talk about a little bit because it was very entertaining. We've got college basketball upsets. I have some thoughts on Max Fried going to the Yankees. And then we've got some college football games, bowl season, FCS playoffs, Division II playoffs. We still got some teams in Georgia that are alive in the playoffs. I will talk about that all coming up after this quick commercial break as you're watching the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We'll be right back after this.
Introducing Gatorade Water. Everybody. Alkaline and electrolyte infused for great taste. Everybody. Gatorade Water, always in motion.
Welcome back to the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Don't forget, coming up after this show, we are going to have the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show live from the Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC showroom. Thrift Behringer and I with special guests. We might have Mike G from the War Report. Possibly Rick Beach could come on. We're going to talk some college basketball. We're going to talk about the college football playoff. And that's the second segment. I want to start out with the college football playoff because I do have some thoughts on the committee. Did they get it right? Did they not get it right? It's not for me to say. I do think that they did a good job with the matchups, as like I always did. I always projected what the college football playoff bracket was going to be. Oregon, the number 1 overall seed, but I kind of feel like they got hosed because they did not get rewarded with the greatest matchup. Yes, they did get the first round bye, and that's what you want to get. But the way that the college football playoff bracket and the cannibalization of these teams, I mean, Ohio State losing to Michigan bumped them down to number 8. There was a debate whether Ohio State should be ranked behind Tennessee, but the winner of the 9-8 matchup between Tennessee and Ohio State will face Oregon in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. My thoughts on Oregon getting an overall number 1 seed. Well, the Big Ten runner-up, Penn State, got the most favorable path to the national championship. They get to play SMU. Now, there was a debate between SMU and Alabama, and I know that you can make an argument about South Carolina or Ole Miss. After the college football rankings, Alabama was ranked ahead of Miami. I agreed with that, even though Miami had 2 losses. Alabama had 3 losses. You lost 3 games. 2 of those losses were to unranked opponents, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. The committee cannot get past you getting beat by Oklahoma 24-3 on the road, didn't even score a touchdown. And that's why Alabama is not in the college football playoff. Yes, if you put SMU and Alabama on a neutral field, Alabama would probably win. I mean, if you put Alabama at SMU, there's a chance that Alabama could win. Alabama's the better team than SMU. Yes, this would be the better product to see Alabama and Penn State, not SMU and Penn State. But SMU, in my opinion, they were the runners-up in the ACC. I know they didn't have a top 25 win all year. And when they played a top 25 team, they lost. They lost to BYU. They lost to Clemson. But SMU deserved to get into the college football playoff because you need to have an incentive out there for making it to your conference championship. And I know they're going to change this up next year. I don't agree with the buys. I don't believe that Boise State should get a 3 seed because they are not the 3rd best team in college football. But the conferences should be rewarded. I think that what they should do is the old traditional BCS rankings. So it would be Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, or Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame. That should be your top 5. And that's the way it should be, but they wanted to reward conference winners. Boise State was actually ranked ahead of Arizona State and Clemson, and that's why, because Arizona State was ranked ahead of Clemson, Clemson is the 12 seed. I don't understand why Clemson is the 12 seed and SMU is the 11 seed. Personally, I'd rather see SMU take on Texas. That would be the better matchup. And then Clemson taking on Penn State. So the easiest path is Penn State, because if Penn State beats SMU, they will take on Boise State, and they could end up facing Georgia in the semifinals without Carson Beck. The latest injury report is that Carson Beck has a UCL injury on his elbow, and he will not play in the Sugar Bowl, as Georgia will await the winner of Indiana Notre Dame. And that's going to be the first game on Friday. I cannot wait for this. Battle of Indiana. It's already sold out at South Bend. This is incredible. I mean, we don't get this matchup often, but Indiana, Kirk Cignetti, who got a big contract extension. Look, and I think that Indiana is the surprise team in the college football playoff bracket. Look, they lost to Ohio State in the horseshoe. Remember, this game was 7-0. Indiana shot themselves in the foot with, a muff punt, a block punt, and, some miscues, and the wheels started coming off, and Ohio State ended up winning convincingly. But what Indiana showed me in that first drive against Ohio State, Indiana can play. And Indiana was able to beat teams like Nebraska. I mean, they played everybody on their schedule. They only had one loss. Absolutely, they're deserving to get in the college football playoff. I know their coach was trying to platoon for them to host a home playoff game, but that could not happen. I mean, Indiana, they're right there where they need to be at number 10, taking on Notre Dame that Friday night on December. Yeah, I want to say that's December the 20th. Yeah, Friday night, December the 20th. Looking at it, yeah. All right, Saturday, December the 21st. And by the way, bowl season's already started, December 14th. We're going to have a bunch of bowl games. But that first game at noon, we got SMU taking on Penn State. We still got plenty of time. Next week's show, I'm going to make my predictions. I've already made my predictions before, but I'm actually going to break down the games. But I think that Penn State's got the easiest path. You got Clemson and Texas. Both teams lost to Georgia. Texas lost to Georgia twice. Those are their only two losses of the season. At one point, Texas was probably the team that was the best in college football, had the best odds to win the national championship. I still think Texas does. They won't have to play Georgia until the national championship if Georgia makes it to the national championship. I do think that the winner of that Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee matchup could end up meeting Texas in the semifinals, because if Texas beats Clemson, well, they get to play Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. And I think that Texas has got a pretty easy path to at least the semifinals, which will be played on January 10th and 11th. So my opinion is that Saturday, that's going to be awesome. Then the primetime game, this is the matchup everybody wants to see. Tennessee and Ohio State in Columbus. You got Tennessee, only 2 losses on the season. Yeah, they had a bad loss. They lost to Arkansas on the road. Arkansas finished 6-6, but they were up against Georgia in that first half. And Nico Iliamavea, just a talented quarterback. Tennessee's got a good defensive line. Ohio State just needs to play their game. They need to spread the ball out, because Will Howard's got weapons with Emeka Egbuka, and you have Quishon Junkins, Trevion Henderson, Jeremiah Smith, who's just a talented freshman wide receiver. He needs to get his weapons open in space. I think this is going to be a shootout. And I would not count out Tennessee getting the upset road victory over Ohio State, because if you look at the history of Ohio State as a program as a whole, they have not had much success with SEC teams. I mean, look at that loss to Georgia in the semifinals a couple of years ago. I know that they lost Marvin Harrison Jr., but C.J. Stroud just played out of his mind. But Georgia was able to come back and win that game. They've lost to Arkansas in bowl games. They've lost to South Carolina in bowl games. They lost to LSU in the national championship. They lost to Florida in the national championship. They have not had a great history facing SEC teams, or ACC teams for that matter, because they did lose to Clemson in 2019 when Trevor Lawrence ended up beating them in the semifinals. Oh, and by the way, Ohio State did lose to Alabama in the 2020 season. That was Ryan Day's second year getting to the national championship. And so Ohio State has not had great history with SEC or ACC teams for that matter. But Ohio State is favored, and Ohio State should win this game to face Oregon for the rematch in the Rose Bowl. But we'll see how that goes. I'm interested to see what happens in the college football playoff. I got plenty of time to break down the bracket on next week's show. Let's go ahead and take that graphic down, and let's talk NBA Cup. The Atlanta Hawks are in the quarterfinals tonight, 7 o'clock at the Garden, as they are taking on the New York Knicks. This is not part of the 82-game season, but it would mean something if the Hawks were able to win the NBA Cup. We did have some NBA Cup action last night. How about the Milwaukee Bucks, as they were able to get the win over the Orlando Magic 114-109 to advance to the semifinals of the NBA Cup. The OKC Thunder able to defeat the Dallas Mavericks 118-104. So we also got the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets tonight in the quarterfinals. And then the Hawks and the Knicks, the winner of that game will take on the Milwaukee Bucks in the semifinals. So looking forward to that. The NBA Cup, it's interesting. It's captivating. I believe in this Hawks team and what Coach Quinn Snyder is doing. I think if they get everybody healthy, I like Bojan Bogdanovic and DeAndre Hunter as role players. I like the two-headed center of Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu. I think that Dyson Daniels, obviously, he's a very good two-way player. And the Hawks won that trade, by the way, when they traded DeJounte Murray to the New Orleans Pelicans, which the Pelicans are not having a good season so far. And, getting Dyson Daniels, that was a home run trade. Trae Young is starting to play with his teammates. He leads the NBA with 12 assists. And Jalen Johnson, he's going to be an all-star. He's just a very good complimentary number two behind Trae Young. I think this Hawks team can make the playoffs, possibly get to the second round. But, you got the Cavaliers having a good record, the Boston Celtics, the defending champions, although they still got their core pieces, but, that's not going to last forever. I think that Boston needs to try to develop some young talent because, some of those players like Al Horford are going to retire pretty soon, but Kristaps Porzingis hasn't even been back yet. So I think that's incredible. Orlando is the surprise team. I know they made the playoffs last year, but Paolo Banchero averaging 29 points a game. It seems like every 12 years, Orlando hits on a big-time center in the draft. Shaq in 92, Dwight Howard in 04, and then recently Paolo Banchero. Franz Wagner with 24 points a game. Those are your two all-stars. Orlando, it looks like right now they're the third best team in the East. And then Jalen Suggs, he's got to be a candidate for most improved player. I thought he was going to be a bust. Out of Gonzaga, and then Orlando drafted him, a high lottery pick. Jalen Suggs, I thought wasn't panning out, but, he might be most improved player along with Dyson Daniels. And then you got some, mediocre teams in the East. Their record does not reflect the type of team they are. The Miami Heat, 12-10. Let's be honest here. Jimmy Butler averaging 18 points a game. Playoff Butler is going to average 24 points a game. If the Miami Heat, even if they're a number 8 seed or if they get into the play-in game, the Miami Heat are going to be dangerous in the playoffs. And then, of course, you got Indiana struggling. That's kind of shocking, 10-15. The Chicago Bulls struggling as well. Detroit right there at 10-15. That Philly with Paul George now, 7-15. That is a very deceiving record because they are going to start making their climb and getting into the playoffs. All right, we've got River Dragons update. The Columbus River Dragons are taking on the Monroe Moccasins this Friday and Saturday at the Columbus Civic Center. 7:30 puck drop, 7:05 puck drop rather. And you can come on out, see the River Dragons in action this Friday and Saturday. Columbus State, Cougars and Lady Cougars. The Lady Cougars are 6-2 on the season. They're taking on Eckhart College this Saturday. Columbus State Cougars 7-1. They are back at home taking on Reinhardt University next Tuesday. Looking forward to that. We have some teams in Georgia that are still alive for their playoffs. Let's start with the FCS playoffs as Mercer. They are on the road at the Fargo Dome taking on North Dakota State. Kickoff 3:30 on Saturday. You can catch that game on ESPN+. And Mercer was able to get a big home victory against Rhode Island last week. And then Valdosta State, they are alive in the NCAA Division II playoffs as they are hosting Minnesota State. And I'm not talking about the Screaming Eagles from Minnesota State, like my favorite TV show growing up as a kid, Coach. That was a fictional team, but no, the Minnesota State, what's their mascot? I don't even know what their mascot is. Looks like the Bulls. All right. I was just looking at their logo. Valdosta State, who has won a couple of NCAA Division II championships. They nicknamed Valdosta Titletown. We know what Valwood did. I mean, we know that just the pageantry, Lowndes, Valdosta, great high school football teams down there. And then, of course, their college team, the Blazers, which has always been a championship contender. All right, Army-Navy. This Saturday, Army is favored. They are 8-1 on the season. Navy is 8-3. Still a very big game. I know that the bowl matchups are already set. Army won the American Championship. That might be a disadvantage that Navy actually got a bye. They got a week to prepare for Army. This is such a great rivalry. You could throw out the record books. I like the fact that both teams are successful, that they are going to play in a bowl game, and both teams were ranked. Navy was ranked at one point. Army was able to get the top 25 in the final college football playoff rankings. And, if Army does lose to Navy, do they change in the rankings? Well, no, the rankings are set in stone now. So this game is happening after they revealed all the bowl games and after they revealed the college football playoff, but that's okay. It's still a great rivalry, and it really means a lot for our country. And as somebody who has served and is currently serving, I always appreciate Army-Navy, and it is just a great rivalry. And Thursday night football tomorrow, we've got the 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams. 49ers need this game if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. I know right now they trail 2 games to the Seattle Seahawks, who are 8-5. Seattle could just run away with this division, make the playoffs, but I don't give them any luck. They might end up having to face either the Vikings or the Packers in the first round of the playoffs, and they would be a home dog in the playoffs. I actually was listening to Sports Talk Radio. They said if the 49ers get healthy and if they sneak into this playoffs, they could end up making they're not going to get a wild card berth. I think the Washington Commanders right now are the 7 seed. The 49ers are, unless the Washington Commanders end up collapsing and the 49ers are able to sneak in and get a wild card, they need to win the division to get to the playoffs. The 49ers, if they get to the playoffs, they could be the most dangerous team in the playoffs because, once they get everybody healthy, there's still a small chance, although I wouldn't risk it, that Christian McCaffrey could be ready for the playoffs, but it's still a small chance. The 49ers are a different team if they have Trent Williams and Nick Bosa. I was very impressed with the way they dominated the Chicago Bears, which the Bears aren't like a doormat. They were 4-2, and they're in a tough division. And the 49ers just manhandled them. So it's going to be a big game. The Rams had an emotional win over the Buffalo Bills at SoFi Stadium. This is actually going to be at Levi Stadium up in Santa Clara. But Puka Nacua, it just is one of the best wide receivers in this game. And Cooper Kupp, even though he's getting up there in age, Matthew Stafford in that game against Buffalo, out-dueling Josh Allen, has proven why he is still a great quarterback. All right, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. They are going to be playing the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday Night Football. And the Falcons, who lost to the Minnesota Vikings 42-21, Kirk Cousins throwing a couple more interceptions. But Coach Raheem Morris is going to stick with his guy, even though I'm saying it's time to start Michael Penix Jr. But they will take on the Las Vegas Raiders, where there is a chance with the injury to Aiden O'Connell, they might end up having to face Desmond Ridder. Yes, you heard me right. Desmond Ridder could be starting the game for the Raiders. Look, I'm not going to speculate. There's a reason why Desmond Ridder is not an Atlanta Falcon, because he single-handedly cost the Atlanta Falcons at least 6 games last season. Kirk Cousins is almost in that stratosphere. I mean, think about it. He's cost the Falcons at least 2 games this year. If Desmond Ridder ends up beating the Atlanta Falcons, we're done. I've lost all faith that the Atlanta Falcons as an organization, as a culture, as a team that went to the Super Bowl in the 2016 season, I'm done. They haven't made the playoffs since 2017. They just drafted all these skilled players. They don't utilize Kyle Pitts like they should. Drake London has shown possibility that he could be a Pro Bowl wide receiver. Bijan Robinson, they don't run him as much. I do like the running back tandem of Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. They get all these defensive pieces like Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates, Matthew Judon. They still have great defensive players like Grady Jarrett and A.J. Terrell. And now Caden Ellis is looking good. But I can't explain it. The Atlanta Falcons are the most snake-bit franchise as far as blowing leads and shooting themselves in the foot and turning the ball over in the red zone and just making stupid mistakes. And when they all figure this out, because I was sitting there watching that game against the Minnesota Vikings, and they jump up 7-0, they get the ball back, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, if you don't score a touchdown here, Minnesota's going to find a way to win this game. And Sam Darnold did just that with 5 touchdown passes. I don't know what to say. What if Desmond Ridder beats the Falcons? How are you going to react to that on Tuesday? Because this game's on Monday night. I don't know. Wednesday's show is going to be interesting because I'll talk about that Monday night game between the Falcons and the Raiders. All right. Final thing before I get you out of here and we get ready for that Georgia Alabama Sports Live show up at Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC. Get ready to smile. All right. Juan Soto, a ridiculous contract, 15 years, $765 million going to the New York Mets. But the Mets are not going to get, their money's worth. That is just a ridiculous contract. 15 years. Are you kidding me? And then finally, Max Fried. Man, that's got to hurt if you're a Braves fan. You kind of knew that this was going to happen, that the writing was written on the wall, that Max Fried was going to be a free agent and, sign a big contract. But to the New York Yankees, unbelievable. 8-year deal, $218 million. He's 30 years old. Last year, he went 11-10 with a 3.25 earned run average. He's faced injuries, but when it comes to big-time pitcher in the postseason, Max Fried was it. And I know if you're a Braves fan, you would love to keep Max Fried, but he was going to be too expensive. The Braves are going to get some starting pitching like A.J. Smith-Shawver. They've got some young prospects that we might even see in a Columbus Cleanstones uniform. And that's why I'm excited about the Cleanstones. And by the way, their opener at Synovus Park, April the 15th, taking on the Pensacola Blue Wahoos. We got you covered here on the Sports Beat and the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show with all your Cleanstone action. So Max Fried, he was an Atlanta Brave from 2017 to 2024, a 2-time All-Star, a World Series champion in 2021. His most memorable moment, Game 6 of the 2021 World Series against the Houston Astros. Getting out of that inning when a lot of people thought that he ended up hurting his ankle on that bang-bang play at first base. And then him just with the fist pump. And Max Fried has shown that he was a big-time pitcher in those situations. And, he was one of the catalysts for the Braves winning the World Series in 2021. But now the Braves, which, they're still going to have some good pitching. Spencer Strider should be coming back from that injury. It hurt when Freddie Freeman went to the Dodgers. And it's going to hurt that Max Fried is going to be wearing those pinstripes. I don't know what to say. Boy, this was a fun show. I know that I usually go a full hour. not doing this show on WQEE anymore. Usually I would do an hour-long show there because I had an hour time slot. But this was a lot of fun. We're getting ready for the Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC Georgia Alabama Sports Live show right there in the showroom. That is coming up in about 10 minutes. So everybody have a great rest of your day. Don't forget, every Wednesday, Georgia Alabama Sports Live's Facebook page and YouTube channel. On Mondays and Fridays, it's going to be on the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge's Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I'm trying to get guests. Last week, I had Philip Jordan. If you would like to be a guest on the show, just message me. I want to try to get some guests on, especially when we get ready to talk college football playoffs and everything that's happening with the NFL and the NBA. It's been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.